guys, this is Julie from Connecting Japan, and this is the third in our series of cultural videos on demographics. We're actually going to look at different races and tribes today and those who are on the fringes of Japanese society. When it comes to how many of those in Japan are actually foreign, there is only 2.2%, not as many as you think. And these are people that actually considered those who hold no Japanese citizenship. When it comes to tribes in Japan, there are two indigenous tribes. The first one is the Ainu, and they're found in Hokkaido, the island of Honshu, and they're also found in different parts of Russia. They use the katakana language, and that is the Japanese phonetic language that is used predominantly for loanwords and company names. They also believe in animism, and they believe in the worship of animal spirits. So they would put their trust in everything they do based on the particular animal spirit that is in charge of that specific part of their lives. The second one is the Bonin Islanders, and they are an indigenous group found in the Ogasawa Islands off the coast of Tokyo. They are comprised of European, Polynesian, and Kanak. The reason why that is so widespread in their different racial traits that they have is because of the merchants that actually came to that area so long ago. Currently, there are only 200 left in Japan. Many of them moved away after World War II. Their faith is Christian. So this may explain why it is that the merchants in the past played a big effect on them and their future. Now, when it comes to the main ethnic group in Japan, they're called Yamato. If you're a old enough person to know My Star Blazers or Battleship Yamato, that's where the name comes from. It just means Japanese. The Ryukyuans are the other indigenous group that are found on the Ryukyu chain, and they're situated near the big island of Okinawa. Their main tribal differences are that they speak a different dialect from the rest of Japan, and they are more of a matriarchal society, which is unheard of in Japan considering that most of Japan has a more male-dominated worldview. The faith groups are coming next, and the only one that we could actually find any information on is the Kakare Christian. And we have a small article based on this group in our Connecting Japan Facebook page. They are found around the 17th century, and they are found in the Nagasaki area of Kyushu. This area is listed as UNESCO, so please be sensitive if you're planning to visit the area. And there are about 300 of them left. These people are what was left of Christianity after the 1549 to 1873 period, when many of the trade merchants were around. Now, obviously, from different whims of different warlords, that Christianity was banned to some degree between 1549 and 1614, and that ban was lifted in 1873. So the amount of them that are left is very few, as we've said. The current Pope actually visited there in November last year to highlight their plight. So the basic issues they're facing right now is many of their generation is moving on, and this is just another instance of where globalism is affecting different tribes and races across the world, and they don't have any more leadership coming up, and most of the leadership that are there right now are getting old and they're declining. Most of them obviously would be Catholic because most of their influence came from the Jesuit priests that came to Japan at the very start of when all the merchants turned up. The Hikikomori is the first of our social groups that we're going to be talking about, and the word just means recluse. We've talked about them previously in a mission video. There is 1.15 million of them that have withdrawn from society, and their ages are varied between the ages of 15 to 64. There are very different reasons why this could be the case. They are left outside of the fringes of society. Some of them may have a disability, and some of them may suffer from mental health issues, whether it's from their work or other family constraints or just pressure in general that's expected of them. The Japanese people have a modern view that the modern view of this is that they actually are doing something criminal because they are not conforming for the way Japanese people do things. And because of this sort of opinion that modern Japanese may have of them, a lot of these people have caused themselves to withdraw from society. So there's a lot of complex issues as to why this is so. They believe that they're not of any worth because that is what they're fed to believe. And we're going to explore more about this in another video another time. They are not part of the actual circles of Japanese society. So you've got your society, your family, and your individual, and each one of them intellect and work together. For hikikomori, they are completely separated, with individual over here, your social over here, and your family over here. So most of them are actually relying on their parents, and there are reasons for that because welfare is not given to these people in this situation because they have family that exists to help them. The next one we're going to looking at is the homeless in Japan, and these statistics are very difficult to get, but what we can tell you is in Tokyo alone there is 4,977 in the current statistics that we could get. They can't beg. Now in other parts of globalized world, you will probably see homeless people begging, but in Japan it's considered illegal. So what do? In this instance, they go and get recyclables and scrap and sell them. And you'll find if you've been through other parts of Asia, this is more often the case, that many of them actually sell these things to make a living. They're not seen during the daytime. There seems to be an unspoken law between modern working Japanese and the homeless, that they're sort of out of sight, out of mind. And I guess part of this mindset can explain the stigma that the Japanese hold for people who are homeless because they have failed in their progression in life. Most of them may actually have lost ties to family units as well because they've come to the cities to find work, and obviously that hasn't worked out, and it may be that age has been a big stumbling block to them getting a better start in life. And it could be the instances where it is obviously, most of them, the statistics of Tokyo, the cost of living is too high for them to live in an apartment. They might have a makeshift house on public land, and by and large they are not allowed to be kicked off those, so they tolerate them being there. But it's some of the issues that they face as to why they're homeless is health issues might be a problem. They may not be able to find enough work a lot of the time, and they may be struggling to find work that suits them. And and there's times where there's been economic slumps as well that will actually affect how many homeless there are. There are housing shelters to some degree, but many of them are overcrowded, and some homeless people just don't feel comfortable with that. The elderly, 30% of them exist in Japan right now, usually over the age of 65. If they have had health insurance in their lives, they would be on what's called an LCTI system. If not, it's they're more or less on their own, as most of their families have moved away. Although by traditional standards, it's important for family members to look after the elderly. The biggest issue they face when they're living in the residential care is that many of the volunteers are the same age as them. So it puts a lot of stress on the system. So it's not exactly ideal, but they're trying to find a way that works for them. And many of the villages where elderly live are just full of other elderly people because there's no work and there's no business generated into rural areas. The Japanese government is trying to move some people into these areas where people have abandoned places, but how that will work is another point for another time. The final one we're talking about, and one of the big reasons why we are going to Japan, if the homeless and the elderly and the recluses are not enough is the suicide rate. Even though they say it is getting better because they're actually putting in initiatives, any one person that actually commits suicide successfully is still one too many. And the fact that that goes down to the age of 10 is a very serious concern. The Japanese birth rate at the moment is under critical stage at the moment, and is the smallest it's been since World War II, as in post World War II, I mean. And it's a serious issue that we need to face. We don't want to lose any more of the generation that's supposed to be sustaining into the new future. So how we can help is different initiatives that churches can put on. There are different churches around the place that will tackle this issue differently, and mainly as Japanese are relational people, we've talked about before, the most important thing is that we shine the light of Jesus into their hearts. We can show them that they're worth it. For a country that has no belief in God whatsoever, I can only imagine that this is a serious issue that we in the Western world need to think about, that this could be the reality that we will face if we do not act. So in most cases, although I am not a counsellor, counselling and just spending time with them is probably the best things that we can do, and offer support in any way we can. And this may be sharing devotional groups with them. At this moment in time, there may be some initiatives around that we can point them to if they're available, but if not, the best thing we can do is be their friends and walk alongside them and help them through their struggles. And if there's any way we can alleviate the pressures in their lives, we should be the first ones on the ground to act. So how can we help the other demographics that we've talked about? We can help them all find value in Jesus, to first of all, to know He is the one that took all their sins and suffered on the cross for them. We can also tell them that there is a God in heaven that cares for them, that knows their worth, and they do not need to be subject to answering to ancestral spirits or animal spirits or anything that they need to appease to give them good luck and good prosperity. And just a belief in who they are. I hopefully that these sort of things can help you. We hope to do some more videos in the future. The last one we're going to do in this series is on poverty. I know these particular videos are a little bit more serious, but we need to shine all these things out into the world. Thank you guys for watching, and ja matane.